This is JC Setting the Record Straight podcast. I'm your host, JC. On this channel, we set the record straight. That means we fact check and correct commonly believed misinformation and propaganda. In this podcast, I'm going to discuss the sexual relationships between white women and black men during slavery. And this is based on an article from the DePaul University called The Sexual Abuse of Black Men Under American Slavery, and the author is Thomas A. Foster. I'm going to post a link. Throughout American history, the white woman has been depicted as a fragile creature with no sexual agency. The reality is that white women were the ones initiating sexual encounters with black men. In a section of the article that addresses white women specifically, it talks about how white women were sitting around lusting after black men, how many of them wanted to have black husbands. The literature that was written by white men was homoerotic. The literature often focused on the black man's height, his muscular body, and his skin color. It says that the black man's body was described in almost pornographic detail. So white women were reading this and they were fantasizing about black men. White women were also lusting after teenage black boys who were running around half naked. In 1769, a newspaper in Maryland condemned a white woman for polluting her husband's bed after she gave birth to a biracial child. In 1785, a white woman in Virginia was punished by her church for fornicating with a Negro. There have been other accountings of white women having sex with black men during slavery that were written about in diaries and other literature. There was one accounting of a white woman who was repeatedly seen lurking around the slave quarters. There was a white woman in Maryland who lived with a black man who seems to have been her slave, and she bore him 7 children. There was a divorce in 1825 in which the neighbors testified that the wife was having sexual relations with their slave. A black man reported to the AFIC, which I'm not sure what that means, that the planters had to watch their daughters to keep them from having intercourse with Negroes. The article says that mistresses often ordered their slaves to sleep with them, especially if their husbands died. In 1841, there was a court case in Kentucky in which a white woman was attempting to sell some property. She was living with a black man as his wife. The court declared that their relationship was not a marriage, but was a concubinage, based on the imbalance of power between the two of them. White women sometimes coerce black men into having sex with them by threatening to say that the black man had raped her. Other white women paid black men to have sex with them. The article says that the black men were actually being paid for their discretion. The article says that white women preyed upon black men who were the most brutalized. White women yielded more authority over brutalized black men and felt less fear of exposure. It says that white women tended not to make advances to more intelligent black men, but preferred the brutalized black men because they had been terrorized into submission. It says that white women experimented with black men sexually while maintaining their appearance of virtue. It says that white women were imitating the behavior of their brothers who were having sexual relations with female slaves. It says that white women were at a lesser risk of getting pregnant than black women because white women had greater access to contraceptive information. If a white woman actually did give birth to a mixed-race child, the child would have been taken away and sold. So I went back to the beginning of the article, and AFIC stands for the American Freedmen Inquiry Commission. Apparently, this commission documented the conditions of black men who had recently been freed by the Emancipation Proclamation. The article is out of sequence, but it basically says that if black men were caught having sex with white women, they would have been castrated. The article says that even though black men were depicted as being hypersexual, it was the white woman who was highly sexual and depraved. The article does get into the sexual assault that black men suffered at the hands of white men, but like I said when I addressed Tariq Nasheed's video, Buck Breaking, this article talks about rape. It doesn't say anything about black men getting on their knees sucking white man's dick. That never happened. Tariq Nasheed made that shit up. For a thorough examination of the relationships between black women and white women during slavery, I would recommend a book called They Were Her Property. This book discusses white women's brutal involvement in the management of slaves, particularly black female slaves. So this notion that white women were only tangentially involved in slavery is a lie. They were active participants, and they were just as abusive as their male counterparts. Thanks for your support. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you will know when I upload new content.